Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Rifles in the Nam. This is a game designed by Gottardo Zancani and is published by Tiny Battle Publishing. This is the fourth in the Solitaire Rifle series from Gottardo. We've had Rifles in the Ardennes, Rifles in the Peninsula, Rifles in the Pacific, which we've looked at on the channel here, and now Rifles in the Nam, getting into Vietnam, more modern era, definitely my jam. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. Introducing Rifles in the Nam, the next installment of Gottardo Zancani's popular solitaire rifle series, this time set in the intense battlegrounds of the Vietnam War. Experience the gritty action of jungle warfare in a uniquely immersive single-player format. Say goodbye to traditional hex maps. Instead, dive into three simplified yet engaging maps: tunnel, jungle, and city, that capture the essence of the Vietnam theater. Engage in thrilling firefights with 5 to 10 units per side across various scenarios, including a convoy rescue, tense tunnel searches and fights, city battles, jungle ambushes, and a linked campaign. Utilizing blind chit draws and strategic die rolls alongside carefully crafted charts, the game offers an authentic taste of the unpredictable nature of war. For contents, we have 105 1-inch counters, 3 distinct maps, army sheets for U.S. Marines, Army, North Vietnamese, and Viet Cong, 12 missions and a campaign, player aid cards, rulebook and scenario book, 3 6-sided dice, and some baggies. It is for ages 14 and up for 1 player. Complexity is 5 on a 10 scale, and playing time is 1 to 5 hours and 3 minutes, which is typical from Tiny Battle and Flying Pig. They always add in that extra 3 or 4 minutes to round up the time. But up here we see an example of the counters and the maps that will be in this game. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. And we have our 3D6 and baggies, our rulebook and mission book, counter sheets, our player aid cards, and our maps. And one other thing that's really cool is, besides these maps, is, again, Tiny Battle is starting to use small boxes, which is fantastic. Hope they keep doing it, because we love having those little boxes to put those games up on the shelf. So let's set up the maps and take a closer look at the game. Now we'll take a look at the first 2 maps that come with the game. We have jungle on the left and we have city on the right. And first thing you're going to notice is that these are not your standard hex and counter maps that we see with all tactical games. These are going to be much more different. Things here are abstract, which moves it along quicker and with a much more compact footprint on the table. Enemy will start in lane 1. You will start in lane 6, and you'll just move up, they'll move down, and along the way, you'll be seeing each other, you'll be getting into firefights, things like that. You'll also have to overcome terrain and terrain features, and terrain will block line of sight. So there is line of sight in this. It's very straightforward. If you're on 5 and they're on 3, there's something that's blocking in 4. Neither one of you can see the other. So pretty straightforward in that regard, and it does help things move along a lot quicker. The next map, though, is something that is very unique to this and really cool. And the third map that comes with the game is a tunnel map, which I think is going to be really cool. And this is going to be a little different. As you can see, it's going to go 1 through 8, so I'm going to assume that this is going to be handled in a similar fashion to the other maps 1 through 6. You're going to probably start off on 1. They're going to start off, I would guess, on 8 or 7 or 6, and you're going to be going along and finding surprises along the way, traps, things like that. And it's going to be real interesting how this is going to play out. So I'm real curious to see this in action, because that was one of the most terrifying jobs in Vietnam, and that was the job of the tunnel rats. So hopefully this will capture some of the essence of that to give us that tension and maybe even a little bit of that fear that those brave men faced when they went down into those tunnels. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. On the first one, we have the game turn sequence, unit morale, unit activation, combat modifiers, recon points, recovery, close combat modifiers, night range table, and the unit roster that you can make copies of to keep track of units that you have on the field. On the back, we have the skills table, civilians, and exposed movement for the way map. Then on the second and last player aid card, we have your tracks for turn track, fatigue, as well as your helicopter 1 and 2 for your air mobile units. Next, we'll take a look at the counters. We have 3 counter sheets in the game. On the first one here, we have U.S. forces, and then we have the NVA, some Claymore markers, as well as the event markers. On the next sheet, we have the remainder of the NVA forces, as well as some VC units, NPCs, and some admin counters. And on the last counter sheet, we have the terrain and terrain features markers. Next, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 19-page rule book. On the first page, we have the table of contents listing out all the rules, their associated page numbers. Then we get to the game overview, game components, what you'll need to provide, game conventions and abbreviations, units, morale check, map cards, the terrain, the different types of terrain that you'll be dealing with. You have open, jungle, deep jungle, tree, foxhole, village, building, fields, rice paddy, and elephant grass. There's also going to be barbed wire and cover markers, booby traps, and then of course line of sight like we talked about before. If you're between the two lanes and you have terrain in the way, it's going to block line of sight both ways. Then we have the game sequence. You start with your mission setup, squad selection, mission execution, and then the end mission briefing for the campaign game only. There's your mission setup, set up your terrain, place your event markers, your squad selection, how you're going to pay for all of the squad members that you're going to be using, your enemy selection, and then the mission execution. Then we have the game turn, which is going to be your group creation, friendly unit activation, enemy presence check, enemy forces activation, and decrease game turn marker. Then we have the group creation, friendly unit activation, available friendly unit actions that you can take, enemy presence check, enemy entrance, event markers. Remember those question marks, you're going to be placing them down, and as you activate them, you'll flip it over, it'll give you a number. You read from the events as to what is happening now. Then we have the peeking event markers, where you can get a chance to look at the event marker, maybe avoid something that's really detrimental to you. Enemy force activation, enemy attack, hopeless enemy attacks, enemy units in special terrain, overwatch fire, something you're going to definitely want to be paying close attention to, as you would in the field. You want to have a unit moving, but you also want to have a unit in overwatch as well. Decrease the game turn, recon points, combat procedure, target selection, attack roll, area effect, suppression, cover fire, close combat, engagement in close combat, joining at close combat, enemy units entering close combat, recovery, and then special weapons, grenades, grenade launchers, weapon mount, claymore mines, fire support, and then we have leadership. Leadership effects, fire groups, helicopter operations for your landing zones. You have assigning units to a helicopter, landing, embarking, hidden units, and then how you gain the hidden status, effects of being hidden, losing the hidden status, spotting, night rules, and then the tunnel rats missions, which those are the ones I'm really looking forward to. Then we have the tunnel map. So it looks like you're going to be placing your event markers in every location, and that will trigger things as you go. You have your movement, range, march line, equipment, actions available, combat, enemy activation, way special rules, your city terrain. You have towns, multi-story buildings, and the first floor. Exposed movement, civilians, mission end, campaign game, starting a new campaign, fatigue. Then we get to the Army sheet overview, and this is going to give you a breakdown of how to read each of the Army sheets. Remember when we looked at the counters, there were no numbers on it, no information on those at all. That's because all of that is on your Army sheet. It's going to give you the breakdown how to read it in the overview here. It's going to give you your unit section, unit names and weapons, equipment section, your build points, nationality name, cost and build points, and the unit special attributes. All of that is going to be on each of these sheets. We have a sheet for the Army, U.S. Marines, NVA, and then the VC on the last sheet. Then on the back of the rules, we have the unit roster that you can make copies of and print out, so that way you can keep track of all your units in each of the games. And lastly, we'll take a look at the mission book. This is a 14-page book. Inside of the front cover, we have a listing of all the scenarios and their associated page numbers. The first one is Rescue Team. Second scenario is the University. Then we have Tunnel Rats 1, Tunnel Rats 2, Prison Camp, Search and Destroy, Kazovac, or Dust Off as it was called in Vietnam. Then we have the Village, Night Combat, Preparation, Rice Paddy, and lastly we have Songway Bridge. Then we have the campaign log on the last sheet, and then on the back of the mission book we have all of the campaign tables that we'll need for playing the campaign. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Rifles in the Nam. This is a solitaire game designed by Gottardo Zancani and is published by Tiny Battle Publishing. Well, it's great to see the fourth game in this series now come to the modern era, Vietnam. Definitely right up my alley. Everybody knows I love modern era stuff. And even better than that is not only do you have jungle and city, you've also got tunnels to go through. So I'm really digging the idea of going through tunnels and seeing what that brings to the game, what it changes up, how it changes the feel of the game. The game is really straightforward and easy to understand and abstract compared to what we're used to with other tactical games. And that makes the line of sight a lot easier, because the line of sight is one of the most confusing parts of playing your hex and counter tactical games. Everybody has a little bit of a different look on it. They're all very similar, but there's always a different take. And this one's going to be even more straightforward, which makes it a lot easier. So really digging the idea of what they've got in store here for Rifles in the Nam, and looking forward to checking it out. The one thing that I did notice that I would like to see improved, and this is just a word of suggestion to Tiny Battle, these games are really a lot of fun, fantastic. Components are great. The one area I'd love to see improved are the counters. That is one thing that with Black Horse and now with Rifles in the Nam that definitely comes up a bit short, that I would love to see improved. That's not taking away anything from the game. I'm just saying that I'd love to see better counters, because these games deserve it. And one of the most awesome things, now they're coming in boxes more and more. We have Black Horse in a box. Now we've got Rifles in the Nam in a box. Definitely want to see more of that. Fantastic from Tiny Battle Publishing. And like I said, can't wait to start digging into this. And this game's available now, so if you have not placed your order, go to Tiny Battle website and place it today. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.